Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror comedy film, The ABCs of Death. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The film begins with a torrent of blood pouring from a funnel. The blood begins to fill a bedroom and wash away several pieces of a child's play blocks, each featuring a different letter of the alphabet. The movie is a collection of 26 stories of mayhem and horror that each begins with a corresponding letter of the alphabet. The first story begins with a husband eating his breakfast in bed. He takes a bite of his apple before his wife suddenly enters the room. She's wielding a knife and starts stabbing her husband several times until she jams the blade in his chick neck. Unsatisfied, she even picks up a frying pan and hits him in the head. As he lies dying, the wife kneels down beside him. She explains that she has been poisoning him for months and he was supposed to die an unsuspecting death. But she has run out of time because the apocalypse has begun. As the sounds of chaos outside their house grow louder, the wife lays down next to her dead husband on the bed and welcomes the end of the world. The second story begins with a young child walking into the living room. Doing a smelly workout on the couch is a girl and the child's older cousin, who is supposed to be babysitting her that night. The couple gets interrupted by the young child's arrival. The cousin orders her to go back to her bedroom. To get her to go to sleep, he tells her that in this neighborhood, children have to be in bed by 8 p.m. or else the monster called Bigfoot will get them. At first, the young child doesn't believe his smelly bullshit, but the girlfriend joins in. She tells the child that many years before, the city went to war against Bigfoot. In the end, the monster agreed to go inside cold storage under one condition, that it can eat any child who is out of bed at 8 p.m. and not counting sheep. She adds that Bigfoot walks around the neighborhood with a cart for his dead bodies and rings a bell. The child gets scared out of her shit, so she obeys by going under her blanket and counting sheep. The cousin and his girlfriend leave the bedroom and proceed to continue their smelly workout. But the cousin sees that the garbage collector is coming and his mother would be angry if he didn't take out the trash. So he grabs the garbage bag and opens the door. He comes face to face with a long-haired man with pale eyes wearing a trench coat. This is the Bigfoot they were talking about. The monster slaughters the cousin and his girlfriend. It then enters the bedroom where the child is sleeping. But the child remembers the story and she continues to lie under the blanket and count sheep. Because of this, Bigfoot leaves her alone. The third story begins with a couple sleeping on their bed. The wife hears a squeaking noise and wakes up Bruno, her husband. He stands up to check out the noise, but finds nothing. In the morning, the wife calls on him to check out the puddle of blood in the backyard. He then discovers that there's a mysterious hole in his yard. It sucks him in. Bruno loses consciousness and wakes up when it's already night. He walks back inside the house. To his horror, he sees a version of himself sleeping on the bed with his wife and also wearing the same exact clothes he has on. In his panic, he runs into the living room and hides behind the couch. He hears his wife waking up in the bedroom and asking his clone to check out the noise she heard, just as she did last night. Bruno runs outside and hides in the shed until morning. He waits until his clone steps out into the yard after the wife calls him to check the puddle of blood in the backyard. He sees the clone get sucked into the hole just like he was. Bruno steps out of the shed and walks toward the hole. But suddenly, another Bruno appears and chokes him with a garden hose. Blood spurts out of him and he dies. The third Bruno drags his body and throws him inside the hole. The blood forms the puddle that his wife saw, ensuring that the same cycle will repeat all over again for Bruno. The fourth story begins with a fighter wearing a dog tag with a name engraved on it, entering an underground fighting ring. But his opponent is not a man, is going to be a dogfight. A large, burly handler enters, with a ferocious dog being held back by a metal chain. The handler unleashes the dog, and it immediately attacks and bites the fighter. The crowd enthusiastically cheers as they see the fighter and the dog duke it out. The dog pounces on the fighter's neck, but the fighter screams the name engraved on his dog tag. The dog recognizes the name, and he stops. It is revealed that it was his missing dog's name, and the fighter has been looking for him for a long time now. The dog switches sides, and together with the fighter, they take revenge on the handler that kidnapped the dog and abused it. The fifth story begins with a man seeing a spider on his wall. He tries to exterminate the spider, but it evades him and even bites his neck. One night, while he's asleep, the spider bites his ear instead of giving him a sleep massage. He proceeds to spend the rest of the week feeling ill and more red bites popping up on his face. He tries to kill the spider, but it just continues to evade him. Finally, he kills the spider with a rolled-up magazine. However, his ear begins to ache. Thousands of baby spiders emerge from his ear, revealing that the spider had laid its eggs there before it died. The 6th story begins with a schoolgirl having a crush on her beautiful teacher. It appears that her teacher reciprocates her feelings. However, a strong earthquake rocks their area and emits a deadly gas. The two of them evacuate and are trapped in a building. The schoolgirl tells her teacher that she would rather smell her smelly fart than the gas. The teacher agrees and begins to fart into the schoolgirl's face. The girl inhales the teacher's farts hungrily, which are mixed with shit. The two of them are transported into a gas-filled dimension, where they live the rest of their days together. The 7th story begins with a stupid surfer going to the beach. He straps a bag full of bricks to himself, and then paddles into the ocean on his surfboard. He then drowns as gravity pulls him to the ocean floor. The surfer dies, and leaves his surfboard bobbing on the water. The 8th story begins in a world set in World War II, but populated with humanoid animals. A soldier, who looks like an angry bulldog, enters a club suddenly. He is entranced by a fox woman who is performing sexily on stage, but he discovers that she is his German nemesis. She cackles and traps the soldier. She is about to drown him in a pool and kill him by hydroelectric diffusion, but he overpowers her and pushes her and her 2 heavy hormone mountains into the pool instead. The 9th story begins with a husband injecting his wife with motor oil. She is bound and gagged in a bathtub. He leaves the bathroom after he injects her. She begins to vomit and scratch herself until she finally dies. In a monologue, she narrates that this makes her husband a primal animal. The 10th story begins with an executioner about to kill a samurai, but he can't go on with the execution because he keeps almost laughing at the weird and contorted faces the samurai makes. Every time he looks at the samurai has a new funny face. Finally, he brings the sword down and decapitates him. But when the executioner sees the samurai's last expression, he bursts out laughing. The 11th story begins with a woman sitting down at the shit-smelly toilet. Outside the bathroom, a party is raging. The woman poops violently, like detonating a series of bombs. But before she can flush, her poop jumps out of the toilet like a shit mine and begins to follow her around the bathroom. Then the shit mine drops down from the ceiling and forcefully re-enters her unwiped butt, and then exits through her mouth, ending the woman's shitty life. The 12th story begins with a man waking up half-naked and tied to a chair. Opposite him is another half-naked man tied to a chair. A naked woman steps in front of them. The game is that they have to self-let go of their hormones at whatever sight is presented in front of them, and the last one to climax gets impaled and killed. The man survives several stages, and his opponents all die. The sights he has to watch get increasingly disturbing. But when he sees that it's now a small boy being abused by an adult man performing in front of him, the man refuses and loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he is now on the bed with a woman on top of him. In front of him are 2 half-naked men strapped to chairs. He's now performing for the players. The woman whips out a chainsaw and kills him with it. The 13th story begins with a woman trying to unclog her toilet. She grabs a plunger and then discovers that there is a dead fetus in her toilet, not knowing why. The 14th story begins with a man presenting his new parrot to his girlfriend. He had taught it to ask her to marry him. The girlfriend is delighted and says yes. But then the parrot begins speaking incriminating sentences that he had heard when the man was with another woman. The girlfriend is enraged and grabs a knife, stabbing her boyfriend to death. The 15th story features a man and woman in the throes of passion. The woman moans and experiences pleasure, but he starts to choke her, and she dies in the middle of her pleasure. The 16th story begins with a prostitute struggling to provide for her 3 kids. Her boyfriend had stolen her savings, and she has no choice but to accept a gig in a photo shoot. The man who offered her the gig gives her a kitten. The prostitute then squashes the kitten with her heel as the man films her. Later on, she enjoys the day with her children. The 17th story begins with the actual filmmakers arguing about their idea for the letter Q. Nothing they're doing is working, so they decide to kill a duck on screen for the shock value. However, the 2 filmmakers end up accidentally killing each other instead, as their boom person runs away in fear. The 18th story begins with doctors removing and peeling away a man's skin. His body produces full rolls of 35mm films, and he is continually subjected to medical procedures. One day, the man escapes. He heads to a train yard, where he crushes himself underneath one of the trains. Later on, the sky starts to rain blood. The 19th story begins with a girl kidnapping another girl from an outpost in the middle of the desert. The kidnapper puts the victim girl in the trunk of her car and speeds away, but a hooded figure follows them. Eventually, the kidnapper runs out of gas, and the hooded figure kills her. It turns out the 2 girls are hallucinating in a house due to the drug overdose. The girl wakes up and shoots up, imagining that she is in the desert again. The 20th story begins with a mother and father trying to teach their young boy to go to the toilet, but the boy is scared of the toilet. Suddenly, the toilet grows teeth and balls and starts killing his parents rather than eating their shits. The boy then wakes up in his bed and realizes that it was all just a dream. He stands up and goes to the toilet to use it. A loose screw with the overhead toilet tank scares him, and he ends up getting his head stuck beneath the lid. He screams, and his father comes running to the bathroom. But when he sees his son's situation, he laughs at his shitty son. However, the toilet tank comes crashing down and pulverizes the son's head. The father starts screaming. The 21st story begins with a vampire emerging from his coffin, but a waiting mob tries to capture him. He feeds on a woman and then runs through the woods, but he is subsequently captured and staked through the heart. Finally, the mob decapitates him. The 22nd story is set in the year 2035. Due to the dwindling resources, only a limited number of women are allowed to have children. A female officer has served a decade in the police just so she can have her permit to have children. However, she is infertile. Later on, she goes on a mission with her robot partner to hunt people with mental powers. They discover a mother and father hiding with their baby. The robot partner kills the parents and decapitates the baby. The officer's boss arrives and reprimands the officer for sympathizing with them. It turns out the baby has powers, and it proceeds to kill the robot partner and the boss. The officer is now the mother to this powerful baby. The 23rd story begins with an animator working on a short film related to the letter W. However, he is called by his colleagues to the other room to watch the outlandish news footage. A cataclysmic event involving chemtrails, clown zombies, puppets, and warrior women is destroying the world. Eventually, the animator and his colleagues die. The 24th story begins with an overweight woman being judged and taunted for her weight. She gets tired of all the negativity. After gorging on food, she goes to the bathroom and cuts all the fat off her body until she is now a bloody skeleton with the ideal and thin body. She steps off the tub and poses one last time before she dies. The 25th story begins with a janitor in a junior high school teaching one of the male students how to hunt by shooting a deer with an arrow. It is implied that he abuses the boy. The janitor continues to leer at the young male students in the school. The boy arrives at the school and kills the janitor with the severed head of the deer. The 26th and final story begins with a man being shown the positive aspects of America after the nuclear war decimated Japan. Two naked women begin fighting each other, and new appliances are shown to the man. The man refuses to acknowledge America and claims that Japan is still superior. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.